All right. It's here. It's finally here. People have been asking for it for a while. We're doing a tier list of each hero and each lord in the entire game. Now, a couple things. One, I would have done this a while ago, but I was waiting for a patch, and then we didn't really get a patch, so it's fine. I just didn't want to make it, and it was immediately outdated. Normally, when I've done these tier lists where I did a tier list of each unit type, normally I would say it applies mostly to campaign and multiplayer, and some people disagree on that, but here is my argument for why that is true, is the unit still performs the same on the battlefield versus other units that are also the same. And you can take lord effects that change them, or research technologies that change them, but the base unit at level 1 would perform the same. Now, we're not going to do that for Lords and Heroes. Lords and Heroes, I am going to do it for just multiplayer. If you're a campaign player and you're about to click off, I don't know, some of this stuff will still apply. The main reason I can't talk about campaign is certain heroes, I'm going to say, are D tier, because in the battle, they suck. And that is still mostly true between campaign and multiplayer. The heroes in battle that I say are terrible in multiplayer are 99% of the time still terrible in campaigns battles. But heroes have a different function on the campaign map that has nothing to do with multiplayer. And when I play campaign, I don't really use heroes on the campaign map because I'm lazy. I usually just stick them in an army if I want them. If not, whatever. I use campaign to casually just roll through and get some cool battles and fill time as I'm watching something on my other screen. So, because of the heroes function on the campaign map, they can't be ranked S through D tier, because like Witch Hunter, spoilers for when we get to Witch Hunter, Witch Hunter is a D tier hero in battle. He's terrible, and I would argue in campaign and in multiplayer that is true. I've tried using the Witch Hunter in my Volkmar the Grim Halloween campaign. They're dog shit. There's way better things I could put in that unit slot. I would rather have an Empire Knight than a fully level 50 Witch Hunter in battle. That's how useless they are. But on the campaign map, they are useful. So then it's like, no, they're a B tier. And I'm like, ugh. So this is only for in-battle performance, not for their campaign map. Okay? Okay. S tier is, you should always bring this hero if you're selecting this faction. They are great. They are amazing. They are fantastic. A tier is solid. Always worth taking, but it's not necessarily like trolling if you don't take them because they're situational in certain ways. B tier, they're fine. They don't need buffs or nerfs, but they're only good in a couple matchups. C tier, they're good in a few matchups, but could really use buffs to be more useful in others or be more worth taking. D tier, literally never take them. If you take them in any matchup at all, you're trolling. Let's get into it. Necrotect. That is a B. Nice way to start out the tier list is right in the middle. Fits my definition of B perfectly. He is good in a couple matchups. Doesn't really need buffs or nerfs. He is a non-combat hero, like he has combat stats but not combat functionality. He has the Vambraces of the Sun, so he applies constant debuff to anything he is attacking. He also has Restore to heal up your valuable constructs, but in matchups where healing your constructs isn't going to win you the game, he's probably not worth taking because he is decently expensive while not being a good combat hero. So yeah, he's B. He's fine. Tomb Prince, D. Tomb Prince is just terrible. I'm going to pull him up on the other screen so I can, like, truly review his stats, but I'm always underwhelmed by the Tomb Prince. Yeah, he has a Chariot, which takes away his bonus versus large and his armor piercing, making him worse in every way. He has a Skeletal Steed, which while still having armor piercing and anti-large, he has a health pool less than 5,000 and low armor. And then on foot, he's on foot, so he's slow as hell. Tomb Strike is okay. His curse is pretty bad. Guardian has been outscaled by Warhammer 3. Everybody gets magic damage all the time, so he's pretty bad. And then he has a Blade of Setep, which is very specific. But as a duelist, he just lacks the real stats and the real punching power to get much done. He has terrible mount options, and he's pretty darn expensive for what he brings. The Tomb Prince is terrible. Lich Priest. Do you have anything worthwhile? No. What the hell? Somewhat limited power. Did anybody notice that the Lich Priests have somewhat limited power now in their items since the patch. That's weird. It just says description, a hidden ability that makes characters have plus 10% spell intensity. That's weird. Okay, that's definitely new with the patch, and it looks like a bug. Anyway, Lich Priests. B. They're fine. C. They're C, sorry. Lich Priests are burdened by the fact that all of your good lords are already casters, so there's no reason to take them. The only reason you'd want a Lich Priest is if you're taking Khalida. And Khalida's okay, but you have Arkan, Cetra, and Katep, so I don't know why you're taking Khalida. Arkan, Cetra, and Katep are some of the best lords in the game. It's a good mix of lores. Death, Light, and Nehekara. Not bad at all, but again, you just have better casters in other areas, and they're not good combatants. They don't have good supportive stats either, so it's just kind of like, well, you are just a bare bones caster on a roster with better caster lords. You are a lord. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Get out of here. A skink chief. D. Skink chiefs are terrible. In Warhammer 3, their missile strength doesn't hold up. It's non-armor piercing. Everybody got way bigger health pools, so it's just not scaling well. And they have to get decently expensive to get good line of sight by getting on top of a Pterodon. Or you make them crazy expensive and put them on a Stegodon or Ancient Stegodon, but those aren't the best units right now, and there's better things to use your money and slots on. I don't know, because if you're turning a Skink Chief into a big monster, then you have to heal it, and there's better monsters to do that with. And they have some of the worst items in the game. The Wardrum of Zwatek is terrible, plus 5% speed and charge bonus if you're out of melee, and plus 4 leadership if you're out of melee. So as soon as you get into melee, all that goes away. So, okay, either he's on foot and just offering leadership and speed to people who are also out of combat near him, staying safe. That's pointless. And then he has the Potion of Foolhardiness, which is a one-time use unbreakable for 100 gold. Not worth it. And then he has Slippery, but yeah, he just has terrible items and terrible stats. He's garbage. Source Scar Veteran, you're also C. Welcome to C, friend. Recently got Colossal Strike to try and buff up his anti-large duelist chops. He can be on a Carnosaur or a cold one. He requires healing. And then he has a Plaque of Dominion, the -8 leadership aura that he can use every so often. Often you see him kind of paired in this cheese leadership bomb strategy with the Shredder of Lustria and Doom and Darkness. That's kind of okay. Other than that, he's pretty middling as a anti-large hero. Even on a Carnosaur, he tends to underperform versus other anti-large monsters. So, yeah, Scar Veteran's just not great. Skink Priest. B. Pretty good caster. And unlike the Nehekara casters, there are plenty of good Lizardmen lords that are not casters. Nakai is really solid these days. Krokgar is really solid these days. Crocscranchian isn't bad in a couple matchups. So you sometimes just need a caster. And he currently has the Lore of Beasts in Heavens. Heavens isn't a garbage lore, but it's not very good. He's in B because he has access to Lore of Beasts. And Flock of Doom is just the best spell in the whole game right now. So taking a nice, insanely cheap Skink Priest with just Flock of Doom and Wildheart on foot. He's crazy inexpensive. And then he also has... Focus Instincts, I guess, can stop Rampage. But yeah, he doesn't have Cold-Blooded, so he can't offer that leadership from afar. But still good. Ew, you. Skink Oracle. Skink Oracle goes in C tier. He's niche. He has some really, really powerful spells in his combined spell kit. That's super strong, but... He's stuck on a Troglodyte. He has to be on a Troglodyte. So he's very expensive. He's very tall. He's very weak to melee and ranged fire. And the Troglodons don't have that much range to keep them safe. And they don't do that much damage to be worth it either. So he's just very expensive. And the only positive thing that I have to say about him is his very good hybrid spell lore. But he's only useful in a couple matchups where a Troglodon can stay safe and get a lot of shots off. I'm thinking... Corn somewhat, vampire counts somewhat, but it's hard. Where is Lord Croak? I may not have Lord Croak. Uh-oh. All right, we're back. We got Lord Croak. How big do you need to be? About that big. All right, Lord Croak. He'll be in C. Could use some buffs to make him more viable in more matchups than like 2, but I don't know. He's okay versus vampire counts. He only has 1 spell. It's just in 3 different power levels, but it is very good at clearing out infantry, and it's harder to dodge than people would think, myself included. Kind of for a while thought his Deliverance of Itzas were very easy to dodge, but they charge up rather quickly. So he's all right. He has a good spell shield that's unique from the other Slans. You can have some double Slan tech that is a little nasty versus like vampire counts or something. So he's solid when you want to clear out a lot of infantry and you don't have needs for other lores of magic. Cultist of Slaanesh. D. Ooh, do you have for... I'm gonna double check something before I commit to this. Yeah, they don't have magic. Okay, so they're the melee one. Just making sure that they didn't have the War Shrine. That's the other one. Yeah, these guys have a Demonette summon that they can use, and that's the only thing good about them. They have some buffs for themselves and debuffs for enemies that's supposed to kind of make them like an assassin, but then they have no mount options that help with that. You have a horse, which easily gets stuck in infantry, and you have a Chaos War Shrine, which doesn't have armor piercing, so none of their forms have armor piercing. I don't know. They're meant to be a duelist. They're terrible at it. Their health pool is tiny, and they're very squishy. The Cultist of Slaanesh is just garbage. Hot garbage. Allures of Slaanesh. Hey, you're just as garbage as the Cultist, if not more. This is a caster option if you like paying more for less. The demonic version dies a lot easier than the other hero. You have the same 2 lores as the hero. You have worse mount options than the hero. And like I said, you are more expensive. You're a slightly better duelist than the hero mortal unit. That's neat. You should never take this unit over the mortal unless you don't have the DLC that gave you him. All right, over to the mortal unit. He's all the way up at A tier. Let's go. The Chaos Sorcerer of Slaanesh. Now he is very good. His War Shrine is insane because he's not trying to be a duelist like the Cultist of Slaanesh is. So he has the Slaanesh War Shrine that has the constant AoE draining damage. And he can heal himself by casting spells, and he can grab a couple cheap spells, and then he's a healing Mortis engine with decent melee stats. And then he has some good defensive stuff with the Bronze Armor of Zwarik, giving him some physical resistance, and evasion, giving him some melee defense. And you get the Rod of Torments for some bound doom bolts. So he's very, very good, especially if you're taking Sigvald or another lord that doesn't have magic available to them. He's quite strong. Looks like we're going over to Kislev. For their heroes, we have the Patriarch, who goes in C. Patriarch's not great right now. I'm tempted to put him in D, but I'm going to put him in C. He has some decent buffs, the weird little prayers that Kislev can put out, including a heal, plus 40 melee attack, plus vigor, and plus like leadership and charge bonus, but he's taken several nerfs from when he used to be super meta and OP, and he honestly a little toxic. So he did need some nerfs, but he's definitely gone too far in the other direction. Now he has some half-assed buffs for allies and some really good buffs if they get crazy low, but he himself is such a pathetic combatant that he has a hard time bumping and grinding in the melee and providing those buffs. So he's only really useful for his 3-use AoE heals and some hyper-elite Kislev builds. It's pretty tough out there for Patriarch. Frost Maiden. Just had to look at her for a bit. I'll go C. Frost Maiden's okay. A little expensive if you're going to take her on her bear, which usually just leaves you on a horse, and then she's just a basic horse caster. Doesn't have any really good items or abilities. Snowflake Pendant is kind of okay. Increased power recharge, but doesn't give you more reserves, so it's not like crazy. And then the lore of Ice and Tempest are fine, not amazing lores of magic, so it's not like they have a diverse lore of magic. They're pathetic melee combatants, which is fine, but like there's just too many downsides for me to put them in B or A or S tier, especially when the Kislevite lords that are casters are really good right now. Zarina and the Ice Witch on their Frost Worms are pretty darn insane, or if you want to go cheap, just Foot Zarina is also very good, so it's hard to justify taking a melee lord and then grabbing one of these. Because your melee lord options currently aren't very good. Boris is too expensive. Trazina's okay. Yeah, well, they're down there. If you're taking one, you probably already made a mistake somewhere else. The Golden Knight. C or D? I'm going to go with C, but I'm tempted to put in D as well. Kislev heroes aren't the most impressive. The Golden Knight I've seen in a couple builds where she does some pretty aggressive cheesing. It's mostly for Ursun's Claw, her Frozen. She can apply Cannot Move for 6 seconds when she hits you, and the duration is 17 seconds on the ability. So if she hits you just as it's about to end, it can be a 23-second net, which is brutal. And then she can also silence in an AoE. Those are the only things that keep her out of D tier. But you can take her as a very expensive Karanak clone and just sprint her at the enemy mage and then follow them around all game, and they can't cast any spells. That can be neat. Other than that, she has an advanced version of Guardian and then some decent-ish duelist stats, but non-arm piercing is tough, and only a Warhorse for a mount is also pretty tough, because again, you can get trapped in any infantry ever. Next up is the Hag Witch. They're B. A little expensive, but I think you'd see more Hag Witches if the lords were not already amazing casters. Well, let me see what their base cost is. Base cost is 1,000, which is a little bit much, but they are armor-piercing chariot artillery casters. They have Lore of Beasts, Death, and Shadows, which all three are better than the Kislevite lores. So again, if you didn't have caster lords, I really do think you'd be seeing these guys a lot more. Also, one of them, the Beast one, has a Things in the Woods summon, which is pretty intense. The other guys don't really have as much good stuff, but the Things in the Woods summon is really good, especially paired with Flock of Doom. So they're B tier. I think they're solid. They are just not seen because there's better caster lords, of course, which, I mean, that is a negative. I'm not trying to condone one character and then the next one be like, it's fine though for her. But like, I think despite the fact that you have good lord options, I think the Hag Witches are actually pretty solid. And yeah, their different lores give them more than just redundancy, because the Ice Witches and the Frostmanes are literally the same freaking unit. Hag Witches are actually different, so you would take them if you want some different lores. Maybe Lilith Binti. Skaven. All right. Assassin, A tier. You don't see him too much, but the Assassin is underutilized. I have him in a good number of my builds, and when people ask me for Skaven advice, then I usually talk about the Assassin. Rival High Talisman is pretty darn insane, and that's mostly what you want to take him for. Just a one-time use minus 40 melee attack in a giant aura is pretty crazy, because Skaven games are often decided quickly. If the game drags on, the Skaven are usually going to win. But if you can't get through their front line, you know, with a giant minus 40 melee attack, then they'll hold, their globes will kill a lot of your guys, their artillery will do a ton of damage to you, and they'll get more Flensing Ruins off. So the Assassin's pretty brutal for that. Very cheap price point if you take him with just Rival Hide Talisman, nothing else. And then he does have concealment bombs to hide if he wants to. Like when he's rallying off in the distance, he can stealth and then come in, pop his concealment bombs as he's getting closer to you, and like come in for a rear attack at a key moment or something. But mostly he's up in A tier because of Rival Hide Talisman and how cheap and chipper he is to throw in. He's only, I think with just Rival Hide, he's like 750. He's 600 with just Rival Hide, which is nice. I don't bother taking Assassin's Trophy because you don't really want to fight most of their lords in melee, but Assassin's Trophy can be nice if you're fighting like greenskins. You know their lord is going to end up in melee for quite a while. And again, I would say what I said with Wulfric the Wanderer in a different tips video for Norska. Remember that you don't need to save the Assassin's Trophy for the assassin to be in melee with the character. You can throw an Assassin's Trophy on someone you have nothing to do with while they're fighting other stuff. Like, oh, I see Throg is surrounded by rat ogres. Assassin's Trophy. And your assassin just keeps doing whatever, but now the rat ogres, you know, they get 24 more melee attack and melee defense to hit Throg with. Or, well, Throg has less of those things, but you get my point. Like, so he's really good. Really good. Packmaster, also A tier. Packmaster is a self-regenerating when he's on his Brood Horror, which you always want to take him on his Brood Horror, but assuming he's on his Brood Horror, which is the only reason to take him, he's a self-regenerating support lord with terror, high speed, And he can pair with a Brood Horror main lord well for a lot of 2v1s. I often use Packmaster Warlord combos in my Warriors of Chaos builds. So Packmaster is very good. Shock Collar is insane for keeping dogs in the fight, and Skaven have some of the best dogs in the game with some of the worst leadership in the game. So Shock Collar gets rid of their only weakness and makes your dogs pretty insane. So Packmaster's pretty darn good. Chieftain B. A little less good than the Packmaster because he doesn't have Terror on his Bonebreaker mount. He doesn't have self-regeneration. But Chieftains on their Bonebreakers can do very well in duels, especially 2v1 duels, as is the Skaven way. Paired with a Packmaster or paired with another Chieftain, they can body some fools. And they have some decent little debuffs, like Power Grab and stuff, but mostly you just want to take these guys pretty much naked. Let me pull one up. Yeah, Bonebreaker, I would cut everything, even Shield of Distraction, but Power Grab and Shield of Distraction are okay. I don't know. Power Grab's the one where if your Lord dies, you give everyone +8 leadership, and that's neat, but betting on your Lord dying is really not a great way to win as Skaven, so I wouldn't do that. Eshin Sorcerer. C tier. If not for the spell Warp Star and the Fear of Aramar scroll, this character would be D tier, but those two things keep him in it. The Eshin Lore of Magic is dog shit, but it has one good spell, Warp Stars. So this guy is good if you just want to poke down a low health, highly evasive lord like Balthazar Gelt up in the sky and just consistently spam Warp Stars at him. That's pretty solid. Or if you want to take in a demonic matchup, the Fear of Arminar -24 leadership and reducing the enemy vigor is a double leadership penalty that, especially paired with like one volley from Poisonman Globes, can instantly delete almost any demonic unit. So you can take it as kind of a quote-unquote bound Fate of Buna in a way versus just demonic units. But like, I've had it before where Chaos Furies are coming in, and with my Fear of Arminar, I just point at one and I'm like, yeah, and it disappears. So it's like 150 gold to instantly delete a Chaos Fury is a very good deal. Without those two things, he's garbage. I have nothing else nice to say about him. All right, Plague Priest. Another A tier hero. Very, very good. If Flensing Ruin wasn't hella busted right now, you'd see the Plague Priest in every single game. Plague Furnace is a decent little Mortis engine that's incredibly tanky. He has the Lore of Plague, which is solid. He's very good at getting summons out. He has Scrying Stone to keep himself tankier and increase his leadership. And he has a little known melee contact effect. Anyone he touches in melee gets -10 leadership. So, yeah. He's got good buffs for himself, good debuffs, and a good Lore of Magic. He's pretty cheap. Nothing to complain about with the Plague Priest. If Flensing Ruin didn't exist, he'd be in every game. Warlock Engineer! S tier. Warlock Engineer is insane. Even with Ikit Claw on the roster, the Warlock Engineer gets into S tier. So Ikit Claw is better. And Ikit Claw is an insane lord that people take almost every game. But even with that, I still put Warlock Engineers in the highest tier, S tier. So it breaks the rule of you see them every game for S tier. But I think his sheer power level, if Ikit Claw didn't exist, you would see him every game. Flensing Ruin is one of the best spells in the entire game. He can bring it. He can bring a Mortis engine, and he's foot-sized on top of that, so he's almost impossible to kill sometimes. And while you're trying to kill him, he's draining everything that's chasing him. And if you don't kill him, then he casts the best spell in the game on you, and he is insanely cheap. He is so inexpensive for a hero caster that can cast this sort of spell or have a Mortis engine strapped to him. The only downside is, even for Skaven, his leadership is abysmal. This guy will route at full HP all the time, but that doesn't matter. Warlock Engineers are just insane. They're very, very, very strong. Gorich. D. Gorich. He needs too much. To get proper healing, he needs Throt to be his lord, and then you have Throt and Gorich, and then you need a hero caster. That's a lot of money. Packmasters can offer him slow healing if they happen to be next to him and in melee. But Gorich has one of the worst animation sets, the Mutant Rat Ogre's animation set, that often gets him to jump past his target or just miss entirely based off animations, not even off his melee attack and melee defense. He's pretty squishy. He has a high potential damage, but with 70 armor and 30 melee defense, if he ends up in a crowd of randoms, he's going to take a lot of damage for that. And he's just too expensive. He's too expensive for how squishy he is, and then his animation set keeps him from really delivering his damage. If he had Torlox the Brass Bull's animation set with these stats, you could pop Sword of Anti-Heroes and Warp Frenzy and like guaranteed murder somebody. That'd be insane. But you don't get Torlox the Brass Bull's stuff. You get Mutant Rat Ogre stuff. So then half the time that your crazy buffs are popped, he's going to spend his game on the ground, diving over his opponent, doing dumbass super drill charge animations, and then do one attack. Like, he's just not built to do damage correctly, and he's not worth your time. Over to Dark Elves. Death Hags. They can bring their Cauldron of Blood or not. D. Yeah, D. D tier. Garbage. Pretty expensive on their Cauldron of Blood for just a melee chariot that is very tall and easy to shoot. They have Potion of Foolhardiness, which is worthless, so then you're really just taking them for Witch Brew, Bowseeker, and Chillblade. Their Witch Brew, she can rampage herself for 50% more damage 3 times a game, which is okay, but she's pretty squishy, either on foot or on her Cauldron of Blood. They're just not great, unfortunately. I have nothing else to say about them. Canaan Assassin. You're a solid little B tier guy. You're a sneaky little B tier man. Very short range shuriken attack, but it can do solid damage in certain situations. Not the main reason you take them. They have pretty high melee attack and they do poison, but the main reason you want to take them is if you need Assassin's Trophy for some reason. They're there for that. They have a Web of Shadows, which is like a single-use Soul Stealer type ability, which is fine. And if you take them with just those, they're pretty cheap. $850, yeah, for a decent duelist. What free Web of Shadows cast, all that stuff. They can be good. They're not incredible. They're B. Maybe C, but I'm gonna leave them in B. But maybe C. The Master. D. Master's terrible. Dark Steed and Cold One mounts both get stuck in everything, so they're pretty hard to get to the target you want. He's an anti-large duelist that has a hard time getting to his target unless he's on his Dark Pegasus, but the Dark Pegasus are Pegasus mount, and they're one of the worst mounts in the game. So then he has animation jank, mass issues. A ton of times he's just going to like try and land on something and do that thing where he flies up and down instead of ever landing. So it's like, well, if you pop your buff, the Colossal Strike, and he just T-poses on them half the time it's up, that's not good. So, I don't know. Potion of Strength is not that great. Guardian and Crown of Command aren't that great. So he doesn't have good abilities or supporting items, really. He's just underwhelming for how expensive he is. And then there's the Sorceress. Sorceress is A very functional backup caster if you don't take a Caster Lord, but they're better than a lot of other ones. You have the Darkstar Cloak for constant Winds of Magic power recharge, which is quite nice. Not a lot of heroes have that. They're relatively cheap, pretty high stats, really good lores of magic to pick from. Just very, very solid hero casters that a lot of factions would love to have. Who's up next? Vampires? Vampire counts. Banshee, C. Very niche at the moment. Incredibly weak to magic damage, which the game has all over the damn place. The Banshee is really only good versus low leadership factions with very little magic damage, which honestly used to be Skaven, but now Flensing Rune is the most popular spell in the game, and she gets like one shot by it. So that's not great, but she does cause terror. She is infantry sized, which can make her difficult to take out for certain factions. And she has a Screaming Banner, which is an additional unavoidable -4 leadership. That can be pretty strong. And if you take off all of her useless stuff, she is pretty inexpensive, but still C tier, niche. Maybe like good versus greenskins, I guess. Beastmen, maybe. The White King, also C. Scabstrath is still pretty good at clearing out light infantry. Not great mount options, but I find the White Kings outperform their stat card. White Kings are generally pretty chipper lads that'll follow you into a bad fight and try and get you out of it. They have magic attacks, good anti-infantry, decent melee stats with 44-48 on foot, 44-48 on horse is also pretty darn good. So They're chipper lads. Now they're C tier. I'm not trying to hype them up too much, but they're not objectively garbage. Necromancer. S tier. A caster on a roster that has entirely casters. You would not think they'd make it to S tier, but they do. Necromancers can ride corpse carts, and they have the Forbidden Rod, making them doubly useful, and they have a unique zombie summon that is a one-time use. It does not cost you wins of magic, and in tournaments where you cannot take duplicate spells, Necromancers bring an extra zombie summon on a faction that loves to max out on zombie summons, and that is allowed because it's not a spell, it's a bound ability. So Necromancers with their Corpse Cart AoE buffs, their low price point, their Forbidden Rod, their extra zombie summon, they are everything a Master Lord of the Undead could wish for in a right-hand man. They're perfect. They're great. Vampires! Exact opposite, D tier. Hero vampires are garbage because while the Necromancer really helps out a caster lord, which you have to take, all of your lords are caster lords, the vampire leeches off of them instead of supporting them. She has no way of getting extra wins of magic, but she requires them. Like, they're casters, so they want to cast magic. If you take no spells on them, then they're a worse White King. What are you doing? They have self-healing, I guess, but they give AoE leadership to an undead faction? Oh, okay. Non-primary armor piercing doesn't even give them a different niche from the White Kings, so it's just, you're paying a lot for a non-armor piercing caster support hero when you have the Necromancer. So no, that's a pass for me, dog. Over to the Warriors of Chaos. Unmarked. Now the marked versions will be in their mono gods, but for the Warriors of Chaos, unmarked exalted hero. You have Manticore, you have Doom Totem, you have Hellfire Sword. You're not garbage. I'll go with C. A Manticore combat hero. They were much better in Warhammer 2, but Manticores have seen better days, so they're kind of ride or die on the Manticore. They are decent enough combat heroes with some support capacity with fire damage from the Hellfire Sword or the Doom Totems -4 leadership, but they're not great. So they're just C. If Archaon really needs some bros to follow him into a hero hammer, these are your bros. Now, what about the Sorcerer? They have Forbidden Rod, so if they want to damage themselves to give more wins of magic, they can. They have good lores of magic. I'll put them in B. They're very serviceable casters if you're not going for a marked caster for some reason. You go with a lord that can't cast spells. Yeah, the Chaos Sorcerers are solid. Good melee stats, decent mount options, including flying combat in the Manticore or tankiness in the Chaos War Shrines. They do have Forbidden Rod, again, if you want to damage them and get some more wins of magic. I wouldn't recommend it because it's hard to heal them, but you can do it. So, you know, the Chaos Sorcerers are very good, very serviceable. Nice lads. Herald Hammerstorm. Exalted Hero of Nurgle's here too. Okay, so we're just going into Nurgle next. Got it. Okay, Herald Hammerstorm. C. Only useful versus the undead, and even then, he is useful versus the undead, but there are better strategies. I don't think there's a single undead matchup where Herald is the best way to play it for the highest % chance of winning, but he is good there. I'm just saying those matchups are already cursed for the undead in a lot of other ways that you don't need Herald. He's pretty expensive. He's sort of a foot infantry grinder. He's meant to just kill anything he runs into in infantry that's infantry sized, but his slow pace and high price point make it difficult to justify taking him. Over to Nurgle. Exalted Hero of Nurgle is S tier. Welcome to the game, brother. High armor piercing stats, baseline. You can take a Chaos Steed for more mobility or a Rot Beast for just a bit better stats than the Chaos Steed, but has some options there. Heroic Killing Blow makes him a world beater, and then he does have some really good melee defense in the Helm of Many Eyes or missile resistance from the Festering Shroud. So he's just tanky, high damage, decent price point, but he can get a little spendy if you're going to take everything on him. And Nurgle has a lot of healing. either fecundities or bringing fleshy abundance. So a lot of healing support for such a good combat hero. Exalted Heroes of Nurgle plus the Chaos Sorcerer Lord have been meta for Nurgle for a very long time. For good reason. Plague Ridden. D or C? Let me check one thing. D! All right, they don't have the AoE heal locus. They have the AoE plus 24 melee attack and plus armor piercing damage locus. With horrible mount options in the Rotfly and Nurgling Palanquin, terrible melee stats, the Plague Riddens are expensive, squishy, and if their leadership falls for a little bit, they demonic instability crumble and instantly die. They are awful compared to the Mortal Caster, which is right next to him. So I'll move on. He is terrible. Do not take him. For the exact same Lores of Magic options, plus better mount options, and you don't instantly die when your leadership falls, and for cheaper, just grab the Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgle. A tier Lord, very good. Paired quite a lot with the Chaos Warlord of Nurgle that was added to the game. Lore of Death and Nurgle are both good lores, which the Plague Ridden also has, but he has all the bonuses I just mentioned. Decent mount options, including the Chaos War Shrine if you want to make him tanky and AoE healing. All right, little audio issue, so we had to restart the recording at this spot. But yeah, I forget exactly where it cut off, but he can have AoE healing in the Chaos War Shrine as people die around him. Really good spell lores, decent price point, very good hero that everybody loves. Nope, 2 for Nurgle. All right, last 2, got it. We have Kha'Zix the Befouled, D tier, terrible. He is very expensive for a duelist character. He has to be mounted, so you can't even opt to take him cheaper as an infantry if you wanted to. He has Befouled Charge, which sounds neat, but is not worth 200 gold at all. And he himself is difficult to apply it with because he'll get in the way of your other charging units, so often they'll hit before he can apply Befouled Charge, or he'll go in alone and then, I don't know, just kind of disrupt it all. So then it doesn't matter if there's charge defense versus large because he hit before the main unit did anyway. It's just not great. He has 20% damage resistance only when his health is above 75%. So as soon as he takes some damage, he's going to lose that. And then Sword of Filth is all right. Deadly Onslaught's okay, but he's just way too expensive for a horse character that, again, can get stuck. The good horse characters are cheap and chipper ones that can constantly help you out. The bad ones are ones that either need to be in a specific spot for like his charge thing or a specific spot to like duel a specific character. Then horse mounts are terrible because you don't get to pick where you are. Your mass is so bad, you just kind of end up where you end up. And then lastly is the Cultist of Nurgle. I'll go B tier with the Cultist of Nurgle. He's got some good matchups. He'll do okay. He's one of the better cultists. Chaos War Shrine with the Cultist of Nurgle can be very oppressive. His Gate of Nurgle Plaguebearer summon is okay, but you mostly want him for his overlapping debuffs, AoE for Warrior Bane and Icon of Eternal Virulence. In a blob fight or in a central fight in like Domination or something, he can be a self-healing menace that just debuffs everyone around him and buffs up your allies, and he has Armor Sundering on his melee when he's on foot or on his steed, so he can also help out your Plaguebearers and stuff there. Cultist of Nurgle is pretty good and tanky. Hard to get rid of this guy. On to the Empire, huh? They have a lot of heroes. Empire Captain, D tier, don't at me. These guys are terrible. They're only good combat mount. They're a combat hero. There's only good combat mount as a Pegasus, and even that one's hot garbage. Non-primary armor piercing, just terrible. The only positive thing I can say about them is they're cheap, but they're not even worth your unit slot. They have no good buffs. They just offer nothing. Yeah, these guys are terrible. Engineer, S tier. They were limited to 1 in tournaments for quite a while. I honestly think they might still be. I don't remember off the hand, but they're just a hero war wagon with very high missile strength, and then they also have restock. So if your ROR Hellstorm rocket battery, the Sunmaker, runs out of ammunition, just restock it. You'll be fine. And yeah, they themselves do so much damage. It's pretty insane. Engineers, S tier, OP. Witch Hunter! Welcome back to D tier, my friend. They're just terrible, and they've gotten buffs before, but a foot pistol hero with short range just doesn't really work. Their missile strength is not very good, their range is not very good, so they don't get to shoot very often. And then in melee, they're middling at best, but with less than 4,000 HP and less than 50 armor, they can't really stand up to most monsters that make it to them. Accusation is a good debuff. Tools of Judgment is a good buff for your melee attack and melee defense, but they have a lot of really cool abilities. The problem is they're too expensive for what they provide when they have those abilities, and without them, they're literally useless. So the Witch Hunter is just kind of in limbo. I want him to be good. I keep trying to make him good. He is not good. Rip. Warrior Priest. C tier? Debating on C or D. I'll go with C for now, but debating on C or D. He might be too expensive for what he provides, but I'll give him a little bit of faith. Ha! Benediction, you can give your own units more leadership. Hammer of Sigmar and Shield of Faith, you can make them tankier and hit harder. Well, hit more often, not hit harder. Soulfire does a little bit of damage, but that's still pretty underwhelming. And the Banner of the Eternal Flame is one of the only things that makes me put him in C tier. There are some situations where you can take him versus factions that really try and abuse healing, and his constant application of fire for the Empire can be huge if you don't want to take a Bright Wizard. Like versus Nurgle or Ogres, pairing him with some cavalry can do pretty good. Or keeping him near an expensive target is also nice, giving melee attack to the stuff. Like if you're fighting Golgi's Maneaters, right, for the Ogres, his constant fire damage will make sure that if they get healed, it's cut in half. And then Hammer of Sigmar makes the Halberdiers or Spearmen near them more likely to get hits in. So he's just good at kind of following around something elite and annoying it. Or Nurgle just cutting off Kundides. But that's about it. He himself is a pretty bad melee combatant. And he is a little expensive. So I'm putting him in tentative C, but I could see D. Empire Wizards. I have the Bright Wizard here, but it's all the Empire Wizards. S tier. Empire have some of the best wizards. Their melee stats are garbage, but you can take them on horseback or Pegasus, which are all you really need. Cheap-ish mounts that keep them relatively safe. A huge selection of lores, and then you have the Power Stone, which gives you a really good power recharge rate and reserves per second at the start of a game. Empire wizards are great. They're really, really great. Any faction would love to have this diversity of spell lores at this cheap of a price with the Power Stone. They're fantastic. No complaints. Well, they might be too good, which is why they're an S tier, but no complaints like they need this or this buff. Theodore Bruckner. C, maybe D. I'll put him in C, but he maybe deserves D. He is weird. He only has Reaper for his mount, so he can be a Demigryph combatant. -4 leadership consistently around him if he takes Fearsome Combatant. Titan's Headsman is pretty solid of a debuff. The -50 speed, 50% speed is pretty nice. Balefire Amulet is crazy OP, but only goes off when he dies, and it's maybe been nerfed since it came out. I think he would move up, honestly, if Stormlance wasn't limited use. I have no idea why Stormlance is limited use. He only gets 2 uses off of it. But yeah, he's just an expensive duelist hero, which, as we've talked about, you know, he's on essentially a horse mount, so he has a hard time truly picking his engagements. So that's a little rough, but if he gets in a fight, he is solid. He has good stats, good debuffs, good buffs for himself. Liar's Bane is solid, so yeah, he can do good work. It's just, he's a little limited by his cost in his mount. Ulrika D. Shadows caster who's not that good at casting. A duelist who's not that good at dueling, a kite hero that's not that good at kiting, and she pays for all 3 of them. She is terrible at everything and way too expensive to boot. She's just kind of garbage. Sorry, not sorry. Looks like we have Gotrek and Felix coming up later. Didn't miss anybody for the Empire, so let's go over to Bretonia. Bretonia, Paladin. The Paladin of Bretonia. Welcome to B tier, my friend. Once again, has a horse or Pegasus mount. Pegasus mount is pretty darn bad, but on horse he's very cheap, and all of his mount options have anti-large, which is nice. Blessing of the Lady can give you some damage resistance, and then Guardian can give 15% physical resistance to your lord and yourself, which is nice. And then Charmed Shield can also give him 20% more damage resistance. What I'm trying to get across here is on a roster with a ton of access to healing, you can get a cheap, very tanky, annoying person to deal with. And paladins are solid for that, but their cheap price point is most of the reason you'd want to take them. Similar to all the horse characters we talked about, it's not like they get to pick their fights very often, but they're so cheap. It's like, well, if he died, he died. You know, not a huge deal. Henry Malamassif, up into A tier. His ability to ride a hippogriff into battle is huge. Flying, armor piercing, big wins for him if he's on his hippogriff mount. And he also causes terror, something Bretonia does not have a ton of access to, so he can offer that. His primary armor piercing just makes him a better version of a paladin. He does pay for that a little bit, but he's still very good. Again, he has the combo of the Charm Shield, Blessing the Lady, and Guardian, so we can get some pretty insane resistance stacking that makes him very tanky. And once again, access to healing is always nice. So, yeah, Henry is very good. Felix, D tier. Felix is part of the Gotrek and Felix combo that is one of the most toxic combos in the game to cast as a spectator, but it's not actually that good. Felix is pretty squishy for how expensive he is. He kind of has some stats where he's meant to like grind through infantry, but then he doesn't have the health to back it up. So Felix tends to take a lot of damage, is very expensive, and doesn't create much space. He is only taken for his helping hand and healing. So you can give your lord or hero that's near him melee attack and damage resistance, and then he himself slowly heals up, but it's just too slow. And Warhammer 3 is in a spot on ultra unit size that like foot hero hammers aren't very good anymore. So he tends to just get outclassed on the battlefield. Poor Felix. Damsel. A. Quite solid hero. Very good. On a roster that often takes melee lords, so you don't always have a caster in your first slot, this hero caster is nice and cheap, but you can also make her a little more expensive, but very tanky. With Blessing of the Lady for damage resistance, and a Unicorn for increased spell resistance, and then the Aura of the Lady for more spell resistance, you can make damsels very hard to snipe out with spells, meaning you have to deal with them in melee, which if you take them on foot, they don't get as much spell resistance, but on foot characters are notoriously hard to hit for a lot of model types. If she's on her unicorn, it's pretty easy to hide her in some knights and then just peel her away to safety. She also has access to the Power Stone, which, as we mentioned, the Empire area is one of the better Winds of Magic regen items in the game. One-time use, but you get reserves, which is nice. Now, the only reason she's an A tier, not S tier like the Empire hero, is she has no flying mount option. She doesn't have a Pegasus like they do, and the damsels only have 3 Lords of Magic, whereas the Empire has like 8 or 9. So those do limit her a little bit. Heavens, as we mentioned before, isn't the best spell lore right now, but Beasts and Life are both very, very good. So whether you want to do damage or whether you want to heal damage, the damsels have really good Lords of Magic for you. So they're quite solid. A tier for sure. Green Knight. Oh, how the times have changed. Just a patch ago, I would have said this guy is D tier. Now he is A. He has single-handedly won several matchups against me recently, and I'm getting pissed off having to fight against him. I'm sick of the Green Knight. I'm sick of his nonsense. He is a horse duelist, which is normally a big problem, but man, he makes up for it. His self-healing if he is near the woods, Blessing of the Lady giving him damage resistance while also being a ghost, so he has physical resistance. He has 70% resistance if you aren't dealing magic damage, which is very strong. He also has access, like I said, to his own healing, and of course, Bretonia's healing through a life caster. Dolores Blade is okay. It increases his damage by a flat 50% because he's 100% armor piercing as a ghost, but he also does magic damage and has frostbite since he's a ghost. So you are slower if you get hit by him. He has perfect vigor, so his stats never go down. Strider, so he doesn't get affected by the terrain. Unbreakable. He is jacked now that they've given him several buffs in a row. I don't think he's overpowered, honestly. I do think he is A tier. I think he is quite strong, but my annoyance at several games against him aside, I don't actually think he's overpowered. He is still an expensive horse character, so it can be difficult for him to get where he wants to go. And, you know, he's a ghost, so hit him with some spirit leeches and some cleansing runes and he'll die. But, you know, he is strong now, so good for you, Green Knight. Gotrek Garnison. D. Too expensive for a foot hero, meant for just grinding melee combat. He has anti-large, but as an anti-large foot character, he kind of has to have the large thing come to him because he only has 42 speed. 0 armor means he does get poked down pretty easily by swordsmen or Spearmen, I guess. I was going to say archers, but he is foot-sized and a dwarf, making him even shorter. So it is pretty hard for them to deal with him. He has a lot of cool, fancy abilities, but they make him so expensive that it's not really worth it to take him. So you normally just want to take almost naked Gotrek with maybe Gotrek's Doom for some tankiness, but that's about it. Again, with Felix, he's just too expensive, and Hero Hammers aren't really that strong right now, so he's not actually that good. He's kind of mildly annoying, I guess. Thane, on the other hand, taking a look at the Thane, that is an A-tier hero. He has some pretty bad items, so you'd probably want to cut all those. Looking around, yeah, you probably want to cut all those. And his abilities aren't very good either, so you want to cut all those. But for 550 gold, the Thane is just a ball of stats that you would love to have. He's insanely cheap base cost, and yeah, 50 melee attack, 55 melee defense, 400 weapon strength, 120 armor, and silver shielded. He's very good. Thanes are solid, because Thanes can still make a Hero Hammer work, because they're nice and cheap, so then you can still have an army while having a very elite Hero Hammer running around and winning fights. The problem with Gotrek and Felix is you sacrifice so much of your army funds-wise that they don't make it worth it in the end, you know? Because you have to get rid of so many things. You don't have much of an army left anymore. And then it's like, okay, well, can Gotrek and Felix kill everything? No, then you lose. So the Thane's nice and cheap. Next up is the Dragon Slayer. I'm just looking at his abilities quick. Okay. B. He's okay. He's cheaper than Gotrek in some aspects. He has some better abilities in some aspects. Not as expensive. An anti-large, armor-piercing, fast-ish Slayer hero, but he doesn't make it all the way up to A tier. I honestly consider putting him in C. They're annoying. They're not very good for gameplay. Just unbreakable Hero Hammers are not very fun or interactive, but I'm not going to pretend that it makes him like crazy strong or anything. He has a lot of the same problems as Gotrek. You know, 0 armor means no matter how high your melee defense stats are, eventually you get poked slightly. So yeah, he can get whittled down. He is a little better than Gotrek, a little more reliable, but doesn't mean he's crazy overpowered or anything. Garagrim. He'll go and see. Pretty expensive. The only reason I don't put him down with Gotrek is he has the spin. The Hurricane of Death. You can actually clear out some of the stuff that would damage him, but again, he is another Slayer hero that we've been talking about. Pretty expensive for what you get. 0 armor, but high stats, and like I said, the spin is the only reason he's in C tier and not D, because then if you get surrounded by stuff that's going to poke him down, like I've been complaining about for the Dragon Slayer and Gotrek, he can at least go zoop and clear a lot of them out. Doesn't clear like a billion out or anything, like not like he kills an entire unit in one go, but he can get a good swing out. He's okay. Engineer. I'm just looking. Okay. Engineer gets all the way up to B tier. Engineer's weird because he has a lot of very big positives and very big negatives. His missile strength is okay, but I find he has a lot of line of sight issues for being a dwarf. He is short, so he gets obstructed incredibly easily, so it's very hard for him to get those shots off unless the unit is flying. And when it's flying, I see him missing a lot. Other than that, he is quite expensive, very squishy, very easy to kill in melee, has a low HP pool, does have 120 armor, but still, most things tend to get through that, so engineers have a hard time staying alive. His low speed and non-360 shooting also means he can be forced to run away a lot and not get a lot of damage out. That is a lot of negatives, but to drag him out of D tier and all the way up to B, he has some very incredible abilities. Entrenchment can be quite strong. It does 40% more armor-piercing missile damage, but 20% physical resistance and cannot move. Honestly, I see people use this better on the dwarven front lines when you don't want them to move anyway. Just chucking this on your miners and giving your miners like 20% more missile 20% more physical resistance. Sure, you don't get anything about the armor-piercing missile damage, but it can be nice. So that's just a fun little cheese thing. But honestly, the main reasons he gets to B tier are Flash Bomb, Fire Ring of Thori, and Restock. Fire Ring of Thori is great versus like vampire counts, clearing out low armored infantry. Flash Bomb is one of the most incredible debuff spells in the entire game. Minus 24 melee defense and minus 60% speed is brutal. And Restock paired with Gyrocopter Kite, is incredible. Replenish the ammunition of your units, or give it to your blasting charges, or give it to like Ekron's Miners, things like that. So just Restock is very good. Flash Bomb is very good. Firing Authority is very, very good. He's solid. Runesmith, another B tier. Runesmith's solid if you didn't take Thoric. The runes are good, worth taking, especially Wrath and Ruin is very good. The Hammer of Carrick Draws is pretty insane as a debuff. Minus 40 melee attack and 30% base weapon damage is quite insane. The Skaven Assassin has an AoE one-time use 40 melee attack, and I put him in A tier. This guy gets B tier for its single target, and he is more expensive than the Assassin. But he also has increased leadership for everything around him if you want it, but as dwarves, your leadership is already pretty high. And then he has Forge Fire, which is minus armor around him, but it's not that important. So, yeah. He has some stuff that doesn't matter as much for the dwarves, but just a good rune caster with the Hammer of Carrick Draws gets him all the way up to B tier. He's solid. Beastmen, huh? Running out of space. I hope we don't have that many heroes left. Wargore! Wargore's A tier, dude. Nah, B. It's hard to justify A, but like I do really vouch for the Wargore. But I'll acknowledge that not everybody loves him as much as I do, so I'll keep him out of A. My personal, if this was just me going on my rant about each unit and not considering how the community feels about them at all, I'd put him in A. He can either be on foot or on chariot. I'll score a Razor or chariot, but either way. Armor piercing in all his forms? No, not his foot form, but both his chariots he gets a lot of armor piercing. Will of the Dark Gods gives some melee defense and leadership, and that's nice. Sword of Anti-Heroes is okay, but normally you just want to take him with Will of the Dark Gods on a chariot, then he's like 1,000 gold. And for a chariot, they're strangely consistent about getting good hits in, which is weird. Normally chariots aren't good at that. And if you take two of them, they're very disruptive and annoying. So Wargores, secretly goated. Goated. Beastman. Bray Shamans. Not the most common because the Great Bray Shaman is very solid, but Bray Shamans do deserve a little bit of love in case the Beastmen take a melee lord. I'm going to put him in A tier. He is better than some casters. He can be taken on an armor-piercing chariot, so he can have armor-piercing stats and chariot stats, so he can get around the map quickly and stay safe, push through infantry, all that stuff. So he can be good there. Mostly, though, the Jagged Dagger is a pretty darn good power recharge ability, which is nice. And then they have some of the best Lords of Magic in the game. Beast, Death, Shadow, and Wilds, all four of them are incredible. So currently the Bray Shamans are super solid. Very, very, very solid units. They also do have Primal Fury, so they get immune to psychology if their leadership is higher than 50%. And Woodsman. Oh, they're good. They're very good. Gorbel! Stocks are rising for the Gorbel. Stocks are rising. I've been seeing them, not recently, but in the year 2025, people have been taking the Gorbel. Axe of Men and the Banner of Fallen Kings are both pretty bad, but if you stick to their abilities, you'll be fine. Slaughterer's Call is great for everyone around them. Minotaur units are very good at keeping other beastmen in the fight. I'll put them in A tier. Anti-large armor piercing with an insane animation kit. They get a lot of the benefits of Torlox the Brass Bull's animation kit too, so they're very hard to lock down. Their mass is better than you would think for their model size. And they have some really good diving headbutt stuff, and like it's very hard for units to get away from them because they don't often do that thing where they just follow something and don't attack. They often go into that headbutt animation and just get a bunch of free attacks on something while it's running away from them. So Gorbels are stacked. Their stats aren't that amazing, but their animation kit makes them better than you'd think. Chaos Dwarves, huh? Gorda's Backstabber solo won me a game earlier, so I can't really shit talk the guy. Umais has liked him for a long time, but I have not been a big fan of Gorda's until recently. I'm still not a huge fan, but he deserves B tier. He can be very cheap. He has some dog shit abilities, like Lucky Get sucks, Crooked Dice isn't amazing, Slippery isn't amazing, so you can cut all those, but then he's an 850 gold wolf assassin guy with Dagger of Malice that gives him 100% more damage. So you can get like 600 weapon strength. Not most of it is armor piercing. So he's okay. But poison plus 40 melee attack, so we can get up to almost 100 melee attack. You can get some crazy high stats. And he's very fast. His leadership's okay. And he provides +8 leadership to non-Chaos Dwarf units in range, which can be nice for running him around with some hobgoblins. So he's B. He's useful in a couple matchups. He's pretty cheap. And especially when people try and spam out single entity duelists to fight the Chaos Dwarves like trains. Because they do have some trains where people try and take like double paladin to fight, you know, iron demons. And then Gordos can run up and bother those guys and help out. So he can be pretty good. Infernal Castellan. This is for you, Olaf. For Olaf the Moose. We'll put him in S tier. Sleeper OP unit. Infernal Castellans are pretty insane. Darn strong melee combatants with a ton of ammunition, high missile strength that often hits and does fire damage. So you can just stop anybody from healing ever by just constantly poking at him with this little guy. He can get healing when he's in melee combat. Otherwise, you probably just want to take him really cheap. So he's either 650 gold or 800 gold with self-healing when in melee. Decently high melee stats, really strong shooting, high range, just insanely annoying to deal with heroes that just constantly poke at stuff. So they're very, very good. Infernal Castellans are great. Bull Centaur Torok, on the other hand, back down to C tier for you. Not D tier, so they're not literally worthless. They're pretty niche, but they could use some love. They're just too expensive. The actual character itself does fine for what you want it to do, but then you look at its price point, you're like, ugh, geez, what the hell? It has negate magic in the area, but then it doesn't have physical resistance, so who cares if it's negating magic damage? It has Dark Mace, which reduces someone's armor, but you have primary armor piercing, so why do you need that? And then it has Guardian, but it's hard to stay near your lord when all your lords are either foot characters or flying, and you're like a centaur man, so it's weird. He's just kind of asynergistic with himself and his roster. His stats are fine, but then also he tends to have horse lord problems because he's just a horseman. So he gets stuck in like infantry and he can't move, or if he's in a cav v cav fight, sometimes he won't be able to get to the front line to actually hit anything. It's just kind of a mess. Bull Centaur Torok is he needs some help, mostly in his model. If he got like higher mass and could just push his way to the front of a fight and get in there, maybe I'd think a little higher of him, but he often just gets stuck in the middle of cav fights and can't move and can't even fight his way out. Demon Smith Sorcerers all the way up to S tier. Not as much anymore because Chaos Dwarves got their buffs, but a very common build used to be 2 flying Bale Taurus, Lord and Hero, and that is still true. He didn't get nerfed, just the rest of the Chaos Dwarves got buffed. With access to some pretty good lores of magic and the lore of death and fire and metal, Bale Taurus mount, making him an insane duelist with a breath attack, or he could just get a Lamasu mount to be an annoying silence. He has Reforged to heal up some of your better units in like your Dreadquake Mortar train or Kadai Fireborn or any of those units. So they're versatile melee mages that can be pretty expensive. That's really the only negative thing I have to say about them, but otherwise they're just pretty great. If Zatan the Black was better, or if the Overseer was better, you'd see these guys a lot more. But the only thing holding them back is that their melee lords suck ass. So normally they have a caster lord and therefore you don't need them. But similar to the Warlock Engineer, I don't think that is enough to take them out of S tier. I think this unit is so individually good that the context of they're not taken all the time anymore because the rest of the Chaos Dwarf roster is good now is like, okay, yeah, but the strategy of having 2 Bale Taurus casters flying around and fucking people up is actually still pretty darn good. So, they're very solid. Wood Elves. How many factions do we have left? It doesn't look like a lot. Try and hang in there. Glade Captain. Welcome to D tier, friend. Glade Captain sucks. Glade Captain's bad. Glade Captain is your hybrid ranged and melee character that is supposed to buff other melee characters. You have +5 melee defense and +5 melee attack that you pay 250 gold to get +5 melee attack and melee defense, by the way, because it's on 2 different abilities that are each, you know, You have to pay 100 and 150 gold for them, so that's pretty terrible. And then Deadly Onslaught and Potion of Strength are underwhelming buffs. You can take them either on an eagle or a steed, or on foot. But the eagle loses armor piercing for some reason. And then the stag has some armor piercing, but they're expensive, they're squishy, they don't do that much damage, they don't provide very good buffs. The Glade Captain is garbage at everything. And pretty darn expensive too. Spell Singers. They have the Power Stone, and they have the Blessing of the Ancients. Oof, very good. S tier. In tournaments, they're not as good because you shouldn't be forest camping, but in campaign or quick battles, they're pretty insane. You just put them in a forest and they get Spell Mastery and Recharge just for vibing in the forest. Then you have 3 insane Lords of Magic and Beast, Life, and Shadows. High leadership for being an elf. You have a great eagle mount or a unicorn, so all the nice things I had to say about Bretonnia and the Empire combined. Great eagle instead of a Pegasus mount, obviously. Now, unlike the Empire, you don't have a billion Lords of Magic, but you have 3 really solid ones. And of course, you still have the Power Stone, which makes good casters. Branch Wraith is also S tier. Branch Wraith is very good. A mixed lore of life and shadows. You want Melkoths and you want Earthblood, take the Branch Wraith. Branch Wraith is also a decent little melee combatant, full of feist and anger. Can be decently cheap. The other Trickster's Shard just got a big buff. That's interesting. You could use it for the other Trickster's Shard. That didn't used to be very good, but that got changed in the last patch. But you still have Blessing of the Ancients. You can have Call of the Woods and give everyone around you melee attack. And then with just Earthblood and Melkoths, you're only 750 gold if you have the Call of the Woods. So, yeah. Pretty good little combat lady, who's also a good caster and super tanky. On foot. Low to the ground. Ariel. B tier. Very expensive, so you don't get to see her a lot. I don't think she's terrible. She'll go C. She'll go C. She is a little too expensive to be in B for what she does, but she has bound healing and spells that provide healing, plus blob punishment spells and Soul Stealer and Dwellers Below, plus aerial punishment spells and Tempest. Apotheosis is a crazy good heal for anybody. So she has some really good spells. She has some good abilities. Their main problem is just she's very expensive and pretty squishy with 30 armor and not a giant HP pool. And she's a piss poor melee combatant. She can't grind with anything at all. And she's not a good duelist. So she's not the best. She's not supportive enough or cheap enough to really be worth taking. But in some matchups, she can be okay, I suppose. Waystalker. Welcome to S tier, my friend. In domination tournaments, Waystalkers are either limited or loathed for their double Arrow of Kurnos strategy. Relatively cheap price point. Really, that's all you get out of them. Nothing else they have is that worth it. Eyes of Kurnos is pretty whatever. Warrior Bane sucks. Potion of Speed sucks. So you cut all that and just take them as an Arrow of Kurnos bot that also has long-range sniping with magic ammunition. But in domination, people tend to desummon them and resummon them and just get more Arrows of Kurnos out all the time. They're very strong at that, but mostly carried by the Arrows of Kurnos sniping ability, which is insane. Zincha. Iridescent Horror, welcome to D tier, you suck. On a roster with some of the best casters in the entire game, if you took the one lord they have that can't cast spells, and you wanted to have an overpriced garbage hero that also casts spells, and has a Locus of Change, which gives 25% more missile strength, which has nothing to do with his casting ability, then take the Iridescent Horror, you troll, and lose that game. For everybody else, never take them. They are terrible. Exalted Hero of Tzeentch, on the other hand, welcome to S tier. A very popular and strong anti-large duelist. On their disc, they are nearly unkillable by ranged fire, and pretty tanky in melee as well, and having a flying small mount, they can get to most of the large targets they want. So unlike the horse characters we've mentioned before, the Exalted Heroes of Tzeentch are very good at getting to the large target they're trying to hunt down. That, and they have the Book of Secrets, which if you have good RNG and Tzeentch blesses you, can get 3 bound Fate of Buna spells for free. Good for you. Very powerful unit. Blue Scribes. Honestly, B. They're not bad. They're not bad. They're a little expensive for how squishy they are, but Spell Siphon, I've actually seen a good number of replays now where they get their spell mastery fully charged up to 60% and their spells actually start to crank damage. Now, you are entirely relying on RNG to get good spells out, but paired with the Herald of Tzeentch Lord, who you can actually get pretty cheap if you cut everything for the Herald of Tzeentch Lord. Let's see. Put them on a disc, cut all that because you don't need it. Just get the Chromatic Tome. He's 1,300 gold, so you could get Chromatic Tome and like Searing Doom. And then if you really wanted, you could do Locus of Conjuration or Arcane Conduit if you really just want to crank Winds of Magic. But I really recommend just getting Chromatic Tome for the infinite Winds of Magic power recharge and reserves per second. And then they just buff up the blue scribes, get a lot of spells out very quickly, and get that spell mastery jacked up. It is pretty insane. Stormrunner was running it for funds, but yeah, the blue scribes are fun. They're B. They're not great. They're not bad. The main problem is like you either have to take the Herald and try and make him nice and cheap, or take the Chaos Lord of Tzeentch, which the Chaos Lord of Tzeentch isn't bad. So the Chaos Lord of Tzeentch and the blue scribes can do okay together. You need some good RNG though on them spells. Chaos Sorcerer of Tzeentch has Skull of Catan for his Skull of Catan and Final Transmutation combo. He's okay. He's all right. He's a Chaos Sorcerer, so really good melee stats, really good armor, really good mount options, decent lores of magic, so nothing to complain about there, but he doesn't excel either. He's fine. Cultist of Tzeentch only has fire spells, doesn't have a flying mount option, does have the Power Stone and the Wand of Whimsy for global melee attack and weapon damage, but then it has the Gaint of Tzeentch, which is the worst summon. A pink horror summon for a limited time is pretty bad. Cultist will also go in B. They bring a lore of magic that Tzeentch doesn't have access to in their lords or heroes outside of him, which is the lore of fire, and they do have some decent buffs in their items, and yeah, just their items are good. But their lacking mount options are pretty bad. A Chaos War Shrine of Tzeentch can be okay, but it can leave you a little vulnerable. I don't know. I feel like my tone is overly negative for how I feel about them. They are fine. They're not great, not bad. There's a lot of better casters on this roster, though. I think that's why I'm so negative, is to get higher on the tier list for Tzeentch, you need to somehow overcome their crazy good caster lords, which we established with the blue scribes. It's their spell mastery and random spell selection. In the Exalted Hero, it's his good melee stats and the fact that he pairs well with the Chaos Lord of Tzeentch. The Cultist doesn't pair as well with the Chaos Lord of Tzeentch. So, yeah. I mean, he still kind of does, but I think if these guys were on a different roster, they'd be an A tier. These two, not the blue scribes. But both of them are just held back by having really good caster lords already, so it's like, meh. A-Cold Hellbrass. Welcome to D tier, punk. I'm going to move this pile of people up here because we have less S tier than D tier right now. Aecold is a foot grinding combatant who has self-healing and some debuffs around him, but he suffers from the Gotrek and Felix problem. He's too expensive for a foot grind lord that just doesn't kill fast enough to really be a menace. You can kind of just ignore him. Rip Aecold. Over to Khorne. Exalted Hero of Khorne. Let me check. He has non-armor piercing on his Chaos Steed, so you need to go all the way to a Gorby's Chariot or a Juggernaut to get armor piercing. That's pretty tough. Then his Banner of Rage is okay. Deadly Onslaught's okay. Potion of Toughness has self-healing. Exalted Hero of Khorne is unfortunately going to be C tier. He is niche at best. Not great. I did just list everything about him, but he's a combat lord that can't fly, combat hero that can't fly, and has limited viability. The only thing really pulling him out of D tier is his Potion of Toughness. Being able to heal himself up once is decently nice on Khorne, a roster that doesn't have a ton of healing otherwise. But he is just an Exalted Hero. But man, the Exalted Hero of Nurgle with his base armor piercing makes the Exalted Hero of Khorne look like a chump ass. All right, what are we doing? Cultist of Khorne? What are your mount options? Yeah, that's what I thought. War Shrine. Yeah, you're bad. C though, because Bloodletters are sick. So without the Bloodletter summon, this guy would be D tier, but I have actually seen him in box busting things versus dwarves or Grand Cathay. You just sprint them at the front line with the Gate of Corn, summon Bloodletters behind them, and then those shred through armored ranged units like Quarrelers, Thunderers, Iron Drakes, Celestial Dragon Guard, crossbows, Jade crossbows. So if you have armored range units to deal with, the Cultists of Corn's ability to summon past the front line is kind of invaluable. And you can make him pretty cheap if you just go with the Gate. 900. And then he's a decent melee combatant. You can also go Icon of Endless War if you want to, but don't have to. So he has some pretty bad buffs, but the Gate of Corn alone gets him in C tier. The Blood Reaper. I was just looking at him. Also C. He's pretty bad. He's not unworkable, but he's not good. Okay, yeah, never mind. Those stats are garbage. He's in D tier. He's horrible. Locus of Abjuration is neat. The plus 65% spell resistance AoE. If he happens to be next to an important expensive spell that's getting cast, he can just cancel it almost entirely because Khorne already has passive spell resistance. But that's very niche to take someone so expensive, and he is demonic, making him squishy. But the thing that sold me, and I said, never mind, he's garbage, is on his Juggernaut, he only has 35 melee defense, and on his Blood Throne, he has 20. And then he has like a one-time use heal, I guess. That's kind of okay, but he's just a weird duelist hero that either has to take the Blood Throne, which reduces his stats so much that now he's not even a good duelist, but you can get to the fight you want to get to, or the Juggernaut, in which case he has good stats to be a duelist, but then you have the horse duelist problem again. All this while he's demonic and expensive is just too much to ask for me, unfortunately. Karanak. Welcome to S tier. Karanak's very good. Khorne hates casters. Karanak is the best unit in the game at tracking down casters with a bound net that has 3-time use and does damage. If he gets near someone, he can cancel out their spells for the rest of the game. He has a Fleshhound summon to lock them in place if he can't get to them yet. And then he has Foe Seeker and Talon of the Skull Throne, which usually you cut. You don't want to deal with those in most cases, but he is very fast. He is pretty expensive, which can be a downside to him, but he also has the Wounded Prey debuff, so he reduces your melee defense if he's attacking you and saps your vigor. But yeah, he's just an anti-mage. And for a roster that doesn't have mages, your opponent's really going to try and leverage that you don't have magic against you, and then you can just kind of even the playing field, which Khorne loves. So that's huge. Scar Blood Wrath. Armor Sundering, minus leadership, and his Bloodstorm Blades. Gotcha. He goes in C tier. I have seen him in a couple matchups recently, actually. He is great at murdering foot characters that think they can't be murdered. I've seen him versus Vampire Coast, which C tier is niche. Could probably use some buffs, but niche. I've seen him versus Vampire Coast. He just runs down Noctilus, who normally is safe and sound, and does a great job murdering that fool. Seen him versus Warriors of Chaos here and there, Skaven here and there, things like that. But if the opponent has a Footlord, Scar Bloodwrath can do really good work for you. Dwarves, though, I mean, with Thoric Ironbrow running around, we hardly have Footlords anymore, but still, he does okay versus Dwarves. Shaila Anfingrim. C tier as well. Let's hope we don't have any other C tiers. C tier as well. Syla has one of the worst Mortis engines in the game, but he does have a Mortis engine. He has a Rampage Explosion, which does do a lot of damage. But other than that, he's very expensive. He's very squishy. He has no source of healing. 50 armor, 30 melee defense is a hell of a drug. So, Shaila Anfingrim. Not very good, unfortunately. Just kind of a bit of a meme. I would put him in D tier, but I am going to do that. Why C tier? He's not niche. He's not good in any matchups. He sucks ass. All right, yeah, D tier. That's my bad. I'm sorry for lying to you all for a second there. On to the Vampire Coast. How many more factions do we have? High elves, vampire coast, ogres, greenskins, ogres, Norska, ogres, and Grand Cathay. Okay. It's gonna be tight. It's gonna be tight. We'll make it work. Gunnery white. Unfortunately, welcome to D tier, which means we're gonna take this whole section. We're just gonna shrinky dink it down. Whee! Okay, because yeah, he used to be good in Warhammer 2 when bomber bats were better and his restock could make your air kite very good. But now he's just not. Restock isn't as needed on the Vampire Coast roster. Stuff very rarely runs out of ammo. And the stuff that does run out of ammo isn't usually going to carry you the game. Scabscrath isn't as good as it used to be. It's still okay. Like, it's fine versus light infantry, but your bombers are so good at taking out light infantry anyway, you don't really need it. And then the rest of his stuff is pretty asynergistic. Pigeon Plucker Pendant, -5 melee attack for flying units nearby. Woo! So, yeah. It's just not very good, unfortunately. Mongol Haunter. None of his abilities or items are any good. So if you take him base cost, you have a 1,300 gold terror-causing frostbite duelist. I used to hate him more than I do now. Now he's C tier. He's fine in a couple matchups. Not a lot, but a couple. I'm also going to preemptively shrink C tier. Shrinky dink. There you go. Yeah. So he can get around at a 1,300 gold price point, be a terror-causing nuisance, has really good animations for disruption. Not that tanky, but tankier than you might suspect due to his animations. Decent versus, like, Skaven. He can cause some disruption and be annoying. Grand Cathay can kind of be annoying here and there, but he's okay. Armor-piercing anti-infantry. Better against large units than his stats would indicate, but mostly like horse-based characters, not like he's going to go dual Tamarkan or something. Finally, the Vampire Fleet Captain. Power Stone and Taunt are very good. Being undead means you're unbreakable, which is also quite good. You will go in A tier, my friend. Almost no mount options. You can just put her on a Promethean, which makes her a little bit tankier than being on foot, but Taunt is a good debuff you can use on nearby units. Is it Lords and Heroes or is it everything? It's everything, so it can be very good. The Hunger can provide slow healing. You have the Lore of Death, Deep, and Vampires, which are all 3 solid. 2 of them are great, 1 is just solid. And again, you have the Power Stone, which is kind of a common occurrence around here, but doesn't mean it's all of a sudden bad. So she's good, she's solid. Now onto the high elves. Noble and pious. Looking at the noble, pretty bad items and abilities. On an eagle, he loses his armor piercing and his anti-large. On his chariot, he loses his armor piercing and his anti-large. On horse, he keeps his armor piercing and his anti-large. Wow, that was all depressing as shit. Okay. You're going in D tier, Noble. Boop. Noble's in D tier. The only nice things I have to say are very, very high stats. Thanks to martial prowess, he has a base 62 melee defense, which is pretty high until he takes 75% of his health. After that, I have nothing nice to say. An anti-large armor-piercing horse duelist that can't get to his target, so what's the fucking point? Or you can put him on an eagle, and then he loses all the good things about him. That's cool. Not cool. It's garbage. Handmaiden of the Everqueen. Good lord. The elves' abilities and items on their heroes are so outdated. Okay. Yeah, you're also hot garbage. Magic damage, fire, armor-piercing ammunition is not enough to save you, Handmaiden. You're going down to D tier. You suck as well. You're the worst. Just the worst. Terrible. Terrible unit. Only has horse for an option. Can't even be on an eagle, which, not that we need more flying skirmish in the game, but I mean, come on. Give her something. Okay, you're the mage, right? You are just, what are you, just called a mage? You're just called a mage, my word. You are one of the best mages in the game, though, so welcome to S tier, my friend. You deserve it. Very, very good mage. Debatably the best caster hero in the entire game. Debatably. Starwood Staff gives you reserves per second, which is great. Book of Hoeth gives you power recharge per second, which is great. And then an insane amount of Lords of Magic like the Empire. They have access to Horse or Chariot. The only thing that the Empire has over them is they don't have an Eagle mount or a Barded Pegasus. So they don't have a flying mount. That kind of sucks. But they are S tier. They are very, very strong. And they also have super high melee stats for a mage, with martial prowess making them 40 base melee defense, which is very nice. So they're good. They're quite good. They're quite tanky. And very diverse lores of magic. Lore Master of Hoeth. He's A tier. Screw you, bro. I love the Lore Master of Hoeth. I use him in a lot of my high elf builds, especially when I'm running a Lethanar or Tyrion. He's good. He is held down a little bit by the S tier mage that's right on his roster, but his mixed lore of magic with all good, like look at these spells. Look at these spells. Spirit Leech, Melkoth's, Earthblood. He has AoE healing, any unit damage besides single entities, or single entities damage. So he's solid there. He can have a plus 20% spell resist aura. He can have plus 8 leadership aura. Those are both kind of neat, but the high elves don't really need them. He can have evasion and foe seeker. Those are kind of neat, but he doesn't really need them. So you usually just want to cut him down to 2 spells you want most, probably Earthblood and Melkoth's or Earthblood and Spirit Leech. And then he's less than 1,000 gold for a foot caster with really good spells and really good melee stats. I think he's criminally underrated. I think the Lore Master of Hoeth is quite solid. Love him. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. Broger Kingdoms. What is it? Broger Kingdoms in Grand Cathay and Norska? Okay. Okay, we can do this. Hunter. Anti-large shooting guy that can ride a Stonehorn. Yeah, he deserves B tier. Can be pretty tanky, can be pretty annoying. A lot of the positive things about the Castellan, but he's less tanky than the Castellan. But he does have really good missile strength with significant anti-large. And he can have the Noblar Thief Stone, which gives him damage resistance as long as he stays out of melee. And riding a Stonehorn mount is nothing to scoff at, so Hunter is pretty darn good. Bruiser. Bruiser goes into C tier. I was just looking at his abilities for a second. Potion of Toughness gives him self-healing if he wants it. Fistful of Laurels gives pretty insane buffs to people around him temporarily. And then his abilities aren't very good, but you can just cut those and save some money. But you can get Puncture for Armor Sundering. So he pairs well with like Sabertusk Packs or Ogre Bulls. I generally don't think highly of the Ogre single entity Ogre units. Like, Stonehorns are great, but like an Ogre standing there being a single entity like the Eshin Maneater, I generally don't think highly of them as combatants, but their buffs and debuffs are the important part. Like the Eshin Maneater has some pretty insane buffs and debuffs, so I think he's good. Bruiser has some pretty good buffs, but I'll put him at niche at best. Brag the Gutsman removes ITP in an aura as Foreboding Executioner, so he has an execute ability, and then Great Gut Gouger, monstrous impact damage. I'll also put you in C. That's pretty niche. He can be okay versus like Skaven, but that's about it. Put you down there and C. You're okay. Not good. The execute's really the only reason to take him. And then it's like, all right, so you take him in matchups where you absolutely need to kill the enemy lord, and that's it. Butcher. Maw Shard is pretty good. Extra Ingredients is great. Good Lores of Magic. A little expensive. And held back by the fact that the Ogre Kingdoms have really good caster lords and pretty bad melee lords. Puts you in B tier. Not a lot of reason to take you, but when you do, you're fine. Yeah, he's a serviceable caster. Decent melee stats. A little on the spendy side. No real complaints here. Lore of Beasts, Death, Great Maw, and Heavens. 3 of those are great. 1 of them is okay. Firebelly. B tier. A lot of the same reasons. A little expensive, decent in melee, has access to the Lore of Fire. His abilities are pretty ass, and you already have really good caster lords, but I mean, people take him with Golgi, people take him with Greasus in the Vampire Counts matchup. Greasus is actually okay. The Ogre Paymaster is decent in some rush things. The Tyrant is, in my opinion, bad, but a lot of people like him. So we see a good amount of Firebelly. I don't think it's that good, but it's good in a couple matchups. It's more of a shot against the Ogre Kingdom's melee lords than it is against the Firebelly. He himself is pretty fine. Greenskins. Norska Grand Cathay is left, I think. So we have a Goblin Big Boss, but they need stabbing. Otherwise pretty cheap. Can be taken on a spider or a wolf. They're okay. Not great. I need to shrink the C tier again, because that's where he's going. Same problems as all the horse things. Giant wolf, giant spider are just horses of a different name. And yeah, you're a weird little duelist that has a hard time getting to the exact duel you want. Other than that, you're squishy and fast, but you are cheap, so it's not like I'm paying a ton for you, but you're also not great. They need stabbing is pretty good. That keeps them out of D tier. They need stabbing is a good little debuff. Night Goblin Big Boss was a lot of people's takeaway from the Greenskin DLC recently. They were like, oh man, this unit's OP, this unit's crazy. I think that unit sucks, personally. Shrink that D tier. Shrink it. You can summon a squig for a small amount of time, and then the squig gets not very far, doesn't do very much, and then dies, so that's whatever. He has a potion of healing on himself, which is okay, but he himself isn't that good, so the healing kind of gets wasted. And then he does empower some squigs, rampages them, but gives them more melee attack and leadership. That's kind of okay. But you're just paying a lot of gold on the Greenskin roster for him. He's not that expensive, but he doesn't provide that much either, so I think he needs to be cheaper if he's going to do as little as he does. And he himself is a pretty bad combatant with 35 melee attack with no bonus versus large or bonus versus infantry and not that high of a charge bonus. You just can't get hits in ever. He sucks. Black Orc Big Boss. Hey, C tier, you have a little bit more room. Throw him on the end. Black Orc Big Boss shouldn't be terrible, but he kind of is. He's just too expensive. He has really good personal stats, and he has really good buffs. Rabble Rouse giving Greenskins ITP, giving Greenskins more melee attack from the Brass Cleaver. Get back here gives him leadership. He's kind of everything the Greenskins need. He's just too expensive, and his only mount option is a War Boar, so again, he can get stuck not where he wants to be. And kind of similar to the Bull Centaur Torok, he is kind of meant to roll around with Boar Boy Biggins, but then he doesn't have enough mass or priority to get to the front and really get in the fight. If he could consistently get to the front line of a fight and fight alongside the Boar Boys, I would rate him higher, but I often find he gets stuck in the middle of the unit somehow and just ends up not in the fight, so then his stats aren't really there, and you're paying too much just for him to be a support. He needs to be in the fight to really be worth it. Goblin Shaman. B. Fine. Items and abilities are pretty bad, but crazy cheap for a caster of a decent lore of magic. Yeah, pretty crazy cheap. If you take him with just Vindictive Glare, he has 350 gold. And I'm looking, he does have stock. So he has stock and he's only 350 gold with one spell. That is very, very cheap. Most of his abilities and his items are quite bad, however. So only B tier for you, but cheap little sneaky goblin caster. Orc Shaman. A tier. Orc Shaman's solid. You see him a lot more often on the Greenskin roster because they have not the best caster lords and they have a lot of good melee lords. Orc Shaman, where are you? You can only have the lore of Big Thinkin, or Big Wah, the lore of Big Wah. But Power of Dewa is really good for a lore passive, so he gets a lot of Winds of Magic regeneration. Your spells are for the most part pretty good. Here we go, Fists of Gork, Brain Burster, and Fists of Gork, I think I said that, are all really good. He has a Warboar mount, which can give him good stats and some decent mobility, but he also has the Skull Wand of Kaloth, which gives him minus 16 leadership to anything he touches. So he has some good supportive niches, a decently low price point, good stats. So yeah, he's good. He's a good caster that the Greenskins often rely on. What the hell is your name? Are you Snagla? Snagla Grobspit? With your low range net, Sting of Snagla. You're just a little too expensive. Not a little, you're a lot too expensive for what you bring to the party. Old Snagla. You're gonna go down in C tier, which we have to shrink again. He's very close to D tier, but I'll put him in C because some of his stuff is good. Like the greenskins don't get a lot of nets, so that can be nice. Yeah. Spider hatchlings are pretty useless, unfortunately, for Snagla. Fang Spike is pretty useless for him because his damage is already really low. Mostly we're looking at the Sting of Snagla and the Spiderweb combos are very strong. To help Boarboy Biggins wreck the sides. Because minus 40 melee defense is quite insane. If Wah isn't active, your Boarboys can struggle to hit stuff. So if you sting something, you can make Empire Knights or something die really fast. And then you can net high priority targets when you hit your Wah and make sure they can't run away. River Troll Hag! S tier. Only has access to the Lore of Death, but it is a very good Lore of Magic. She has the Power Stone, which as we've established is great. She has a 60% slow 3-time use Mither from a distance. She can just hit something with a big slow. And then does have a breath attack, but that one's pretty bad. She is a troll, so she has self-regeneration. There's nothing not to like about the River Troll Hag. 54 speed, self-regeneration, Death Caster with Power Stone, and a slow. She's great. She's very great. And has armor-piercing melee attacks. River Troll Hag's very strong. Enviable caster. Ever since the Grom the Paunch DLC, she's been a mainstay in a lot of greenskin builds. 2 left. Norska and Grand Cathay, I think. I think those are the rosters left, and neither of those rosters have very many heroes. I can stop shrinking the lists soon. Soon. Okay. Shaman Sorcerer. Yuck. Norska has no caster lords, so you're gonna see these guys in every build. So by my own criteria, S tier is you see them all the time, A tier is you see them most of the time, B tier is their niche. I'm breaking my rules in the other way, where I broke my rules for the Warlock Engineer and the one of the other casters, the Necromancer, maybe? No, doesn't matter. Anyway, moving on. I broke my rule because you don't see them that often anymore because the main caster, like Ikka Claw, is so OP. The Warlock Engineer doesn't break in often, but they're so good I put them in S tier. This guy is so bad, even though you literally see him almost every Norska game, I'm going to put him all the way down in B tier. He is a caster that exists on a roster that doesn't have a caster lord. And that is the only reason he sees any play and he gets into B tier. Because, yeah, Norska will take him most of the time. He has 3 shitty scrolls, and that's it. He has access to a horse mount and a chariot mount. The chariot mount is way too expensive. He has access to 3 really good lores of magic. Death, fire, and metal are all very, very good. But with no power recharge rate abilities, the Shaman Sorcerers take forever to generate winds of magic. So they're pretty pathetic. But they're cheap, and they're on a roster that desperately needs them, so fine. You get into B tier. Skinwolf Werekin. Also B, honestly. So we'll shrinky dink B tier a little bit more. Skinwolf Werekin is a solid hero. Anti-large, armor-piercing, self-regeneration, decent AoE buff in the Ruinous Flesh, if I remember correctly, that's what it's called. Yes, plus 23 armor and 10% missile resistance for everyone around him is actually pretty good. Potion of Speed sucks, and Foe Seeker and Deadly Onslaught aren't that great, but you can cut all them. He is a little bit pricey, though. That keeps him out of the A and S tier. 1,300 gold is not nothing, though he does bring his own Frenzy, Vanguard deployment, and like I said, those buffs and whatnot, so he can be good in certain builds. B tier hero for sure. For sure. Premier Balefiend, you get all the way up to A. Less common than the Norscan Shaman, but significantly better. It's just that Norska often wants to go cheaper than the Famir can afford. Famir is quite a bit more expensive than the caster for the Shaman, but it has the Lore of Shadows and Fire, two good lores. It has Arcane Conduit, so it can regenerate Winds of Magic faster. It has the 3 garbage-ass scrolls the other guy has. But it has self armor piercing and armor sundering, which can make it a good combatant in melee. It's just at a higher price point, but a solid, monstrous caster lord on a roster that desperately hero on a roster that desperately needs a caster, and it's better than the shaman. So fight me. Grand Cathay, are you the last? You better be. I don't have room. I don't have room for any of this. 4 heroes left. Gate Master. We do not see him much in multiplayer ever. I did see Sipa bring him in the finals of, well, the final top 8 of our biggest tournament, the Warpstone Cup, last year? 2 years ago? Last year? 2 years ago. Last year? 2 years ago. Doesn't matter. He is a 360 shooting missile hero with various buffs: Bulwark of the Gate, Will of the Dragons, Tactician, Bastion's Defenders. Interesting. Warrior's Bane and Boltstorm. He has a lot of crazy different stuff, but mostly people don't take him because he's generally too expensive and doesn't do enough damage quickly enough. He's not that expensive. He's only 850 on his horse, so I don't know. I don't see him a lot. I don't have a lot of tape on him, so I don't really have too much to go on, but I do remember the one time Sipa took him was pretty darn good. He's good when your opponent's going to spam single entities to break your Grand Cathay box. I'll put him in B tier because of Sipa's performance with him. But we do not see him a lot, so he's clearly not that common or useful. He's around. I honestly was going to put him in C tier until I saw how cheap he was on a horse with nothing. And I'm like, okay, on a horse with nothing, he's just a 360 armor piercing shooter, so sure, send it. Why not? Alchemist, Astromancer, and Zaytang. Alchemist has some pretty heavy metal items. 2 uses each, but 90 armor on one is okay. The plus 24 melee attack on the other is pretty darn solid. Has access to only lore of metal, but is relatively cheap for a caster. Let's see, Searing Doom. On a horse with just Searing Doom, they're only 600 gold, yeah. So that's pretty nice. And some people just take them for the increased mastery of the elemental winds harmony, so you make your other casters better, and then you just take them with like the elixirs. So some people do that with the alchemists. They don't get higher because they don't have their own increased winds of magic generation, and you often do see them with Zhao Ming. But Zhao Ming will usually just take his little dragon breath attack, and then the alchemist can take final transmutation or plague of rust and Searing Doom, as Zhao Ming spams the little dragon breath attack, because his final transmutation is bound to his human form, which you often just throw Zhao Ming into his dragon form and leave him that way all the game. Astromancer. Go into B tier. We don't have a lot of room. Just gonna sneak into B tier. Hey guys, hey, it's me, the Astromancer, just creeping out from behind the gate guy. Hey, how's it going? I'm an Astromancer. You'll usually see him on his Wuxing War Compass, but sometimes people are telling me he's good on his Moonbird. I don't see it, but you can. Or on a horse. But usually you want him on his Compass, because then you get 2 bound Celestial Lightnings and Comets, and then you can take Celestial Lightning and Comet on his main thing. And he can just destroy piles of infantry that try and assault the Grand Cathay box. He's very good in heavy boxes or blobs. Take out everybody around him. Just really good against infantry, but less versatile than the Alchemist, mostly due to just only having access to the Lore of Heavens, and that's not as good as the Lore of Metal. Does also have some good Winds of Magic regeneration with the Cloak of Po Mei. And then Celestial Silk Robe helps buff up your surrounding blob, usually. And Nexus of the Elemental Winds gives you even more power recharge on your compass. So he has a lot more Winds of Magic regeneration than the Alchemist does, but he's a little less versatile just because of his Lore of Magic. And finally, Zaytang. Zaytang's taken some nerfs, but I'm still going to put him in A tier for a hero. He is just a bone giant in the form of a hero. He does have something that as a Skaven bothers me immensely, and that is his ability to spot all units on the map entirely. So I can't sneak up on Grand Cathay. He's very good at sniping out other single entities or artillery pieces. He's not that good against multi-entity models like cavalry or infantry. He has some melee stats that should, you would think, make him good at dealing with infantry, like Giant Leap, where he jumps up in the air and then lands and does an explosion. But really, he sucks at fighting anything in melee, anything at all. He's just terrible at fighting against it. So he's all about that Bone Giant sniping and stealth spotting like a bastard. And there it is. Every hero in the game, everybody's ranked. Welcome back to our Photoshop tier list. And I did tier maker once because somebody linked me a tier maker spell list that happened to have all the spells on it. The problem with those tier maker ones is the ones that are already made are usually out of date. And then I'd have to spend so much time uploading everything because I don't have all of these images in like a file. I have to manually Photoshop them all out. And then I would have to save them as individual files to upload to tier maker. And it's just like, nah, this isn't worth it. I can do all this faster on my own Photoshop since I'm already Photoshopping them to cut them out and do this. So here we are. Here's all the heroes. You got them in the jank tier list setup. A lot more C and D tier heroes than S tier, but a decent spread overall. Heroes aren't in the best place right now, though, so generally they are weighted towards the bottom side because there's a lot of not good heroes, and there's a reason you don't take them. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. Roar. Subscribe. Yes, yes.